Welcome to the Pulpit and Porch. I'm Tony Marr, and with me as always is my friend Robert Kell.
Hey everybody, we are so glad you're here. The Pulpit and Porch is where we kick back, put up our feet, and have real conversations about life, faith, growth, and maybe even a little sports and pop culture.
If you're looking for a perfectly polished sermon, you're probably in the wrong place.
Yeah, around here, it's more about those honest, heart-to-heart conversations, like the one you'd have on a front porch with good friends. Sometimes we stay on track, sometimes we take the scenic route.
And honestly, that's half the fun, isn't it? We dig into the highs, the lows, and all the in-betweens of living out your faith in real life. Along the way, we may pull up a few extra chairs and invite some friends onto the porch to share stories and ideas that just may change the way that you see things.
So whether you're chasing your purpose, building your faith, or just trying to live a little more fully, pull up a chair, grab some sweet tea, and join us. This is the Pulpit and Porch. We got a seat waiting for you.
I stayed up way too late last night watching baseball.
Oh, you watch baseball? Did the Dodgers finally get back on a winning streak?
Yeah, 4-game losing streak. Yoshinobu Yamamoto pitched a perfect game. Not a perfect game, a no-hitter into the 7th inning. Lost the no-hitter in the 7th inning, but they kept him in. He finished out the inning, shut out. We only gave him 1 run of run support. And then our closer, who's hadn't given up a hit in his last 17 innings or something like that, gave up a 2-out home run to tie the game. And then we kept him in for the 10th, and he gave up a 2-run home run in the 10th. And then we actually ended up walking them off in the bottom of the 10th with only getting 1 hit in the entire bottom of the 10th. So
that's a rough way to lose a game. To know,
we won the game.
For the other team,
for Arizona,
yeah.
But
Arizona
that
has
did
your
not
number
end till almost 2:00 in the morning. So, and then I was up at 6. So, I'm dragging a little bit this morning.
I don't know that there's much I care about that I would stay up till 2 a.m. Like I would stay up for maybe a World Series game or a championship type thing, but I wouldn't. I don't think I'd stay up for a regular game.
I usually don't, but we were on a 4-game losing streak, and if Yamamoto didn't have a no-hitter going, I probably wouldn't have stayed up. But, I mean, when you've got a no-no going, you've got to stick along with it. And then when he lost it, we only had a 1-run lead, and it was going into the 8th. And so I said, I've stuck it out this long, might as well keep it going. We've got a 4-game losing streak. We need some good mojo. So let's keep this thing rolling for a while. And then when it goes into extras, you can't quit then. So, and you're committed. And I don't give up on commitments, Robert. It's not in my character.
We definitely have talked about that. So,
man, you're out of town.
I am.
I'm watching you from afar.
We are. I'm sitting in a hotel room. We are playing for a shot at the state championship this week. So we'll say we. It feels like you're on the field, but
it does, doesn't it?
My youngest and the team he plays for, we are in a little suburb of Nashville, getting ready to start tonight. So we were supposed to start yesterday. And I drove in, got about 80% of the way here, had made my Bucky stop. I was rolling. And then I got the phone call that there was bad weather coming, and I'm going, skies are pretty clear. I literally spent an hour, um, not like maybe an hour and a half, not willing to leave the hotel to go get dinner because the hail and stuff they were showing that was falling like just around us, and it might come across where I'm staying at. Um, and they were like, "Oh, this whole area is under severe tornado warnings and all this stuff." And I just sat here and I'm like, I haven't watched the news for like weather purposes of going, do I need to go get in a stairwell or something in a really, really, really long time? And so I just forget how. I mean, we of course had the hurricane that hit, and that was such an anomaly for us back in the fall, but here it's like every week. I've got a ton of buddies from my time at the Y that live over this way, and it's constant. Um, just constant weather for them. They're using their YMCA's as shelters for people and stuff. And so they postponed all the games. So now we start today. And if we make it to the finals, which we did last year, we get to stay here for another 3 days after this. So
Vacation.
it's something. I'm by myself. I don't, that's not my favorite thing in the world to be. And I don't mean like in a silent solitude, spiritual discipline, spiritual, formation type thing. I just mean in life. I don't tend to enjoy riding solo, but just due to some life situations and a whole lot of other stuff, I am on my own. If we make it to the championship, I think Mel may ride over with a couple of the other parents and get to be here. But yeah.
But you get to spend some time with me this morning.
I do. You're the only person I've seen since I left the house yesterday.
And I'm not sure where I am right now. According to the screen, I'm like in, I don't know, I
You're in
think I'm
a
at Dunder Mifflin or something,
you're a
which is
very
an
fancy
office
office.
reference.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And
Got like a fern behind me that,
it might be a little fancier office than what they had on that show, but it's pretty nice. I'd like to work there. It's your corporate headquarters for Higher Ministries in the pulpit and porch.
yeah, we'll call it that. We'll roll with that. So, Robert, I have a lawnmower. It's
Yeah, you do.
a John Deere Green Boy zero turn lawnmower, 72-inch deck, commercial lawnmower that has spent more time in the repair shop than it has in my lawn. You don't like this, you just walked away. You don't like my story?
I love your story.
It ties in. I promise it ties in.
No, you're good. Anyway, it's not important what I was doing, but I did walk away.
So I'm mowing the other day and the lawnmower isn't mowing correctly. It's a 72-inch deck. It's got 3 blades on the bottom. And I'm noticing as I'm going up and down my rows of my yard that one section is not cutting. And so I try to figure out with my limited expertise in lawnmower maintenance what's going on. And because of my expertise in lawnmower maintenance, I can't figure out what's going on.
It lasted about 30 seconds.
Yeah, not well. It takes me longer than that to jack the thing up because I have to use the jack and then get it on stands and then jack it some more and then raise the stands up even more. And so it's quite a process to actually get it to a place where I can look at it. And the extent is I look at it. So I get up under the thing and I look at it and I say, yep, can't figure it out. Let's call someone. But I feel like I at least gave it the old college try. The problem is my lawnmower is too big for my trailer. So I have a friend who is a real farmer, not a FF like me, a fake farmer, but he's a real farmer. And so I call him and said, hey, do you have a trailer that will fit a 72-inch mower? And he says, absolutely, I do. I said, okay, can I borrow it sometime? Will my truck haul it? Because if it's one of those that's meant for the
A
trucks
gooseneck.
with, yeah, well, I don't even know what it's called. There you go, gooseneck. You're more of a farmer than I am.
I grew up on a farm.
And so he says, no, you should do it just fine. And I'm trying to show off my knowledge in agriculture. And I said, okay, does it take a 2-inch ball or a 1 3/8 ball? Because I have both trailer hitch balls.
There you go.
And he says, I'm pretty sure it's a 2-inch. So I'm like, it's great. So I grab Camden, my son, and we drive out to his farm. We have to drive through his farm to find the trailer. It's out on his farm somewhere. And we find it. And this thing is a beast. And I don't love doing trailers. It makes me a little nervous. I'm not great at it. Didn't grow up doing that kind of thing.
Me either.
But so we go out and this trailer is massive. It's so huge, but it does go on a regular trailer hitch, probably right at the limits of a gooseneck and a regular. And so we get it hooked up. It's so heavy that it takes both of us to kind of get it off of its stand, and it has one of the built-in stands. And we get it over, we get it set on the ball, we kind of check it, we get it all hooked up, chains, the electronics. My truck has a brake trailer on it. I have no idea how to use it, but for the first time, it's the first trailer I've towed, that when I get back into my truck, the display says trailer attached, and it starts showing the output and the poundage and all of this kind of stuff. Like, I have no idea what any of this means, but we're going with it. And I'm trying to act like I know what I'm doing to my son, because I want him to grow up to be a manly man. And we're well on the way for that. But I don't want him to know that I don't have a clue what I'm doing, and I don't want him to know that I'm scared to death driving this trailer. And so I give a little bit of vulnerability with him and saying, "Hey, help me get out of here. Why don't you get out of the truck and make sure that I can clear this fence line and all this kind of stuff? Because I'm afraid I'm going to take out my friend's fences because I just am not comfortable with this thing." And so we drive it 20 minutes to our house. We have no problem. I actually back the trailer back into a place so that I can get my lawnmower on it. Then I go grab my lawnmower. Camden, my son, is standing by the trailer, just standing out there because he helped guide me into backing this thing up to where I can get the trailer. And I'm feeling pretty good about myself because I've backed this trailer in here. And then I get on my John Deere mower and I start driving up. And as soon as I get up onto the trailer, the whole thing comes off of the trailer hitch, flies up in the air, almost takes my son's head off. Like, seriously, it was scary. And so now I'm on this trailer. It's popped way up in the air, and I'm thinking, what am I going to do now? And so just natural reaction kicks in, and I start backing the lawnmower back off. Well, when I do, the trailer now comes slamming back down into the tailgate of my truck and just destroys the tailgate of my truck. And I start screaming, "Oh man, oh man, oh man." I didn't curse, nothing like that. I maintained my composure for the most part. I only screamed twice. And then I realized I need to hold this together for my son. But I'm looking, and the tailgate of my truck is just destroyed. And I'm seeing that my son is okay. And he's looking at me with shocked eyes. And I start laughing. I'm like, wow, I guess a 2-inch ball isn't right. And so then I go, and I look, and actually on the trailer, it says 2 5/8 ball size required. And so we end up backing the thing off. I call my friend and said, "So first off, your trailer is fine. Second off, my truck is not. But third, do you have a 2 5/8 ball?" And he says, "Oh, I'm so sorry." I said, "No, it says it right on the trailer. I should have looked, but I thought I knew what I was doing." And I tell you this story because we're continuing our conversation in what we're learning and what we're still figuring out. And I know for me, there are so many times in my life where I think I know what I'm doing. I think that I've taken all the necessary steps, and then I get too far into something and realize that I really didn't have a clue what was happening all along, that I really was in way over my head. And oftentimes, it's the times when I think that I know what I'm doing, or I pretend like I know what I'm doing, which I was pretending like I knew what I was doing to my son, that I end up causing the greatest damage. And so in this discussion, we started this last week talking about what does growth look like? What are things that we're learning about ourselves today? What are we struggling to understand and get clarity on in our lives? And are there times in our lives that we can look back that God has reminded us of something that we thought that we already knew, but we found out that we really don't have a clue? Are there times in life where you thought that a 2-inch ball was the right way, but you really realized that no, you missed the instructions that were there for you all along, and you were doing something completely wrong that ends up causing damage
You know,
down the road?
yeah, I think it's interesting. One, I'm glad you guys are okay because that stuff is crazy. And I think it's something that's interesting about it is that you don't know what to do in a situation a lot of times until you're in the situation. And like very rarely, I mean, there's things that we can go, oh, we can watch. Like Landon has this book. Like this survival guide that I bought for a youth illustration. And it's like a super thick, like 2-inch, it's a little yellow book and how to survive all these crazy situations. And he literally keeps it in his car and he reads it and he knows these things. And so if he ever like comes upon an alligator, he might actually know how to handle that situation. But the tension is that the vast majority of things in life, we don't know how to handle them until we're in the moment that it's going on, unless someone has walked us through. So let's just say, and good gracious, I'm bad for this kind of stuff as well. Like if you'd borrowed that trailer from me, I'd be like, oh man, I don't know what size this is or this or this, or I just go out there and hook it up to the tractor and drive it around, do the thing. But if the person you were borrowing it from had said, okay, here's 5 things you need to know. you need a 2 and 5/8 inch ball. When you hook this to your truck, it's going to weigh more than these other three trailers you've borrowed from me. So it's going to activate this, weight mechanism system inside of your truck. And those steps and things of like, here's the things you need to know of what you're going to experience and what you're going to do. And I just think that's where we're at so many times. And the tension for us is like inanimate objects like a trailer, we can figure out and we can guess and we can like really begin to judge, understand, and estimate what they're going to do. When we're dealing with live human beings, which the vast majority of people that listen to us are are in some type of either ministry or like as a vocation,
And the
whether
vast majority of
that's
the people who listen to us are live human beings.
yes. uh, they're in ministry as a vocation, or they're in ministry as a volunteer, and they've just because we've had some people reach out and go, hey, my spouse started listening because they work at the church, and I just think you guys are funny, or I've enjoyed this segment or something like that. And so people are connected to the church, and they're working with people, and I think that's the tension. That's the thing, is that people are a moving target. Now, you and I would both say with our spouses and our kids, the more time you spend with someone, the better you start to understand their operating system a little bit. But there is still always these moving pieces. I spent an hour on the phone with one of my kids the other day, just talking through just human interaction and relationships and things like that, and just working through some of these things. And basically it comes down to is that as people, we can be crazy. And we can do things sometimes that really make it complicated for those around us to go, do I connect to them at a 2 inch or a 2 and 5/8 inch, or is it an inch and a half? Is it 3 1/4? I mean, what's the connecting point? And so, yeah, you're right. That was a great connect. One, it's a great story, but glad you guys are okay. Sorry about the truck. But two, it's a great connecting point to what we're talking about in this space that we're sitting in.
And so we closed off last week talking about what do we do when growth feels slow? That we want growth to happen quick. That I think my assumption is that everyone listening to the show wants to grow as a person, wants to grow as a disciple, wants to grow as a spouse, as a parent, as a friend, as a child, as that we want growth in our life. But so oftentimes growth doesn't happen on our schedule, that we want it to happen much quicker. And we talked about how you handle seasons where you feel like you're not growing fast enough, or maybe you feel like you're not growing at all. And then we closed off talking about what are some common misconceptions that people have about growth. And we talked about how growth doesn't always feel good. In fact, we said that if it's not uncomfortable, it's probably not growth. We talked a lot about how growth can feel like pruning, and we tied it back in to John, where Jesus says, I am the vine, you are the branches. And then we talked the NIV, remain, or the ESV, King James Version, abide in me.
Mhm.
And we talked about that God doesn't just grow the fruit in us, but he shapes the branches of our lives. And we talked through that and worked through that and processed through that. And now I want to kind of pick up our conversation right where we left off. That what do you say to someone who feels like they're stuck? If we have a listener out there who's listening to this and they feel like they're behind, they feel like they're behind in their growth journey, what do you just say to someone like that?
Join the club. Welcome. I don't know how, because I mean, I feel that way, and I don't mean that flippantly at all. Like, I feel that way so much. I mean, something is, I was just looking back over our notes and our, I guess, our script for the show. I, I I was even just thinking through, like, I think sometimes one of the big misconceptions is we just feel like we can do this alone. And 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 if you feel like you're stuck, and you feel like, oh man, I'm not making this step. So who do you have around you that you're talking through this with, that you're confessing these things out, that you're kind of going through? I mean, even in mine and your relationship, there's things recently that I've started to ask you more questions about, and it's not something that I've been intentionally going, hey, I'm not going to ask Tony until there's a level of trust or something in our relationship. It's just that as things go and you grow in a relationship, you start to share and you start to do more things with people, and it gives me a lot of clarity. And so I would say, hey, I get it, because that's where I'm at. I told Mel the other day, and this may be way too transparent. I went through the season of the Bible in 30 days, and I was just like consuming, and it was so much growth, and I came out of that, and I intentionally almost went the other way. It was very just sit, be quiet, very minimal, a verse or two, reflecting and hearing. And then I've kind of hit this season where I'm going, I don't know what to do. Like, I don't do I mean, and I feel a little bit stuck, because it's like it's almost this, I feel like I'm not doing enough, and I'm going, man, it's just not about doing. It's about I forgot the non-abiding word that you used there.
Remain.
Yeah, it's about remaining, and I'm not enjoying this season. At all. I mean, and that's again just really transparent. I am not enjoying the remaining season, the abiding season that I'm in right now. I like things to be moving a little bit, and I'm in a season where I am really, really, really having to. Um, I'm having to talk to some people about some things that I'm navigating through, and I'm journeying in life. Um, I'm maybe not the best version of a leader that I've been in my time, and those things get to me internally, and so um, I get it. I mean, I get the feeling stuck thing, and and I think that I think that if I was going to say something, and I'm intrigued to hear how you would respond to this, I would say, one, it is the abiding that we talked about, the remaining, the abiding in that space. I really do like abide better, but there's a lot of reasons for that. But I also I think that like conversation, and I'm not even saying confession. You might not have anything you need to confess. Um, but like conversation with some people that you trust and is a big deal. And I mean, you and I were talking just the other day about if the people, somebody listening is a pastor, or um they're a volunteer inside of a ministry or something like that, and they feel like, man, all the people I hang out with are these five leaders inside of this student ministry. But I just, if I share with them what I'm going through, they're going to be like, oh, they're a terrible person, or they're struggling. And it may not even be something that is, I mean, I say that bad, you know what I mean with that. But I just, it's just hard, because it's hard to find people to kind of sit with and trust, because you feel like you're always on. And so you got to find that person that you can sit and share some things with, and let them speak truthfully. So anyway, I'm intrigued to hear what your thoughts are on that.
Yeah, I've got a couple quick thoughts. One quick side note. The reason that I like remain better is, according to good old Webster, the definition of abide is be able to tolerate. Be able to tolerate someone or something is the Webster definition of the word abide. And so I don't know that when Jesus says abide in me, that tolerate me, tolerate, um, but remain exactly with what you're talking about, that remain in me, go on my pace. And I think that's the problem, is that we want growth on our pace. And Jesus is saying, no, my pace is not your pace. So just remain in me. Just stay here. Just stay connected to me. Stay connected to me. You don't
That's the
not
second
tolerate me.
definition, though.
Not tolerate.
Like the
Not
first one's accept or act in accordance with. On my Oxford, though, it is the second one.
well, now
Anyway,
you're
I
going
totally get
English.
it. I think they're synonymish. I really, and I don't have enough things set up on the road that I can do this. Um, I would love to actually like
Well,
look
in
at
the
the Greek
Greek,
and
it
stuff.
says No, but here's what I would say in all seriousness to the question and to the things that you were just saying. Last week we spent some time talking about Isaiah 40,
Hmm.
and sometimes we run and not grow weary. Sometimes we walk and not faint, and other times we rise up on wings like eagles and we soar. And I think that oftentimes, especially when it comes to our spiritual life, but really in everything, we compare ourselves. We play this comparison game, and we sit in church on Sundays and we see these people that have it all together, or we sit in meetings with other pastors and their churches seem to be doing better than our church. Their campus seems to be growing faster than ours, or their people are doing better than ours. We see that our friend at the gym is losing weight quicker than us. And it's really hard to be a runner or a walker when you're surrounded by soarers. And we tend to judge our own growth based on what we're seeing out of the people around us. When in reality, what we're seeing out of the people around us probably isn't their reality either. And they're probably looking at us differently than what our reality is. And so when we're surrounded by what we think are soarers and we're just trying to run and not grow weary, we're trying to just walk and not faint, just put one foot in front of the other and make it from here to there. And we see these people that seem to have it all together. We can feel like our growth is behind everyone else's growth. And I think what I would say to that is that God doesn't grade us on someone else's timeline. That God doesn't look at our growth and compare it to what someone else is doing. We're our own unique individual person, and what God is doing in us could be on a completely different timeline than what he's doing in someone else. And who are you behind compared to? Growth isn't a race. It's not a race to see who can get there first. It's not a competition in growth. It's progress, it's movement. Are we becoming more like who we want to be? We said last week, don't measure your growth day to day or even week to week or month to month. But we tend to measure our growth not only on a day-to-day increments, but based off of what we're seeing out of other people around us. And that's simply just not healthy. It's not right. And I would say to someone, you're not behind, you're becoming who you want to be. You're becoming who God wants you to be. You're not behind anyone else. You're on a different timeline. You're running a different race.
I love that so much. And one thing when you were talking that jumped into my head because um oh, which one of my kids was it? It was, I think it was Landon, that he was playing through something, and he was working with um the head of their band that comes in and does all the training with their bands for student life. And Landon was talking like, here's where I'm struggling. Like I don't get to play, I don't play bass a ton, and I'm struggling with this, and I'm hitting this tension, I'm hitting this tension. And he said, and then I see other people do this. And he said, Landon, comparison is a thief of joy. He said, if
Mm.
y'all know if you've ever heard Craig Groeschel say that before. And Landon's like, yeah, my dad quotes that kind of stuff all the time to me. He sends me these things from Craig, and he said it just reminded me of this thing is comparison is such a thief. And the thing that you were talking, and I actually didn't even think about that till I started to share the thing that popped in my brain, is we don't know when somebody else started their journey. Like they were exactly so if the person at the gym's losing weight a little quicker, they may have started something 6 weeks before we did that has their body in a different place. And in 6 weeks, we may start seeing the exact same or even better results because we might have been a little further down the road when we started. Like there's moments in life like we think, oh, I'm more spiritually mature or I'm more emotionally mature than this person, and they all of a sudden seem to have surpassed me. Well, maybe it's because they started working and we don't know what the behind the scenes are. And we feel terrible because we're like, how did I get to this place? But really, we can't. We start comparing ourselves to people and we're going, like you said, sometimes it's, hey, they're looking at us going, oh my goodness, man. Tony's like really like toning up. He looks great, and I'm feeling terrible about myself. and and sometimes it's just the fact of that it's Tony may be sitting there going, man, I'm super proud of how disciplined Robert's been with A, B, C, and D recently, and I wish I could do that. And that's not the case with me and you ever with discipline. But like then also at the same time, there's the spaces of you look at somebody and you go, why am I not? And it's one of those things you get me going, you just don't realize that 6 weeks ago they made a decision, they cut out all sugar in their diet and they wanted to navigate through this thing in a way that was a little bit different, and their body's now reacting to that. And that's the same thing in our faith and in our leadership and so many other things. It's not something that we just wake up one day and go, oh cool. Like I it's the conversation around, like all the time people are just like, books, and I'm just like, how do you grow if you're not reading? And how do you learn? How do you understand? And I'm the world's worst, where I'm the 2/3 reader guy. Like I read 2/3 of a book a lot of times, and then I go back and finish it way later. Like I plow through like 2/3 of it, and then something else pretty gets my attention. But how are
I'm
you?
the
You
exact same
can't
way. My bookshelves are full of books that are 3/4 of the way
80%
read.
read,
Yeah.
yeah. I just I loved what you said there, and just the one thing that stepped into my mind, and then as I started to share it, that Craig Groeschel quote that comparison is a thief of joy. You know, like these fruit of the spirit that the scriptures talk about. You know, joy is one of those. I mean, even James. The vast majority of people believe the half brother of Jesus that wrote, this small little book there at the end says, consider it joy when you face struggles, when you face trials of many kinds, because it's through that that you become mature and complete, not lacking in anything. And and I think that's such a lost art, is none of us, and I mean, I've never loved it, but we don't want to suffer.
Yeah. Coming back to John 15,
Yeah.
I, I think that growth is a relationship. It's not a race. And we tend to make it a race when
Yeah. I need to
when
beat
it's
Tony to this point. Yeah,
when
absolutely.
it's all growth is all about the relationship with Jesus. And I think, I know for me, someone who's ultra competitive against other people and against myself, that I try to make it something that it's not. And instead of just abiding, instead of just remaining and focusing on the relationship and growing closer in the relationship, I try to get there quick. I try to make it a race. I try to make it, how quick can I get to where I want to be? And can I get there as quickly and efficiently as possible and lose sight of the relationship, that it's all about the relationship, not the race.
Well, I was pulling up those verses just as you were talking there, and the things that stand out to me sometimes is just, like he says, apart from me, you can do nothing. And and what, like, I just go, what does apart mean? Like, I mean, and like, how do we start to understand more? I mean, I think I understand what it means. I think you feel the same way, but like, how do we start to understand more? And how do we lean in and start to ask these questions of, when am I apart? When am I away? When am I not connected in this space to Jesus and following and leaning and trusting in him?
Hmm.
I just think that's the thing, is that you're sitting here, like, it's not, I mean, none of this is talking about other people. I mean, he says, remain in me. I'm in the NIV, remain in me as I also remain in you. No branch can bear fruit by itself. He's not talking about, I mean, in 100% in this space that, I mean, he's, you must remain in the vine. He's talking about, like, you must remain connected in me. But like, it's just this, like, you can't do this on your own. It has to start centered in Jesus. It has to start centered in a desire to serve, honor, love God with your heart, soul, mind, and strength. That's actually a series. I don't. I don't pitch it a lot because I think I would have a hard time getting it through. But like, I love the idea of like, I just think the vast majority, like, love God's heart, soul, mind, strength. Strength kind of has a people talk around it a few different ways. I've heard it called stuff, not just physical, but like the things we own, the things we have, stuff like stuff and things, whether that's our physical strength or our possessions. I've heard it a few different pieces added in there. But like when you start thinking about abiding in Jesus, that means that we will love God. We're the branch connected to the vine, that will love Him with our heart, soul, mind, and strength, and our neighbor as ourself. Like apart from Him, we can do none of that. That is just, and so I think that when we look and we go, hey, I'm struggling, could it mean that we've decided to take the pruning shears and remove ourselves from the vine, and we're just trying to navigate this thing on our own a little bit?
Let's take a quick break, and we'll jump back into this in just a minute.
Empowering leaders, enriching lives. That's the heart of Hire Ministry. They're dedicated to equipping Christian leaders with the tools and resources they need to thrive in their calling. Whether you're looking for leadership development, strategic planning, or community outreach strategies, Hire Ministries is here to help. Visit hireministries.com to learn more and thank them for sponsoring our podcast.
Hey, so we're back here on the Pulpit and Porch. Robert, why don't we take a quick break and a quick detour and do a little bit of porch picks?
That'll be fun.
All right, folks, pull up a rocking chair and grab yourself a glass of sweet tea. It's time for Porch Picks. This is where we give you our top recommendations on, well, just about anything. If we like it, we're picking it. No deep theology here, just good old-fashioned opinions. So sit back, relax, and get ready for this week's Porch Picks.
So you're on the road. You had
Yes.
about a 4-hour drive yesterday and time sitting in your hotel room by yourself all last night. You said that you brought the Roku with you.
I do. I have a
Listen to
traveling Roku.
Traveling Roku. It's just in your pocket all the time. You got it attached to your keys.
I have it all the time. Um, I literally pack one in my suitcase when I'm traveling, and so if I'm sitting in a hotel room, I'd rather watch stuff that I want to watch than just whatever's randomly on TV. So yeah.
So on your drive
Since
yesterday, listen to any good podcasts? Did you watch any good shows last night? Reading any
Yeah,
good books right now?
I listened to Jonathan Pockluda's. They're in this conference thing they're doing, and they're doing these live Q&As, and they are Miso Live, I think is what it's called, but it's called Becoming Something is their
Miso?
podcast. Yeah, I don't know what it stands
That's a
for. I
great
mean,
Japanese restaurant.
yeah, it is. And I think, and so Becoming Something and the last couple of episodes they've had have been absolutely incredible. And so I highly recommend those.
Now I'm
Um,
hungry.
I haven't had breakfast yet. Um, I got up and they don't, it's this, I just, when you're coming to a state tournament last minute, you don't always get to choose the hotels so there's no breakfast here. So I'll go out and grab something in a minute. But, oh, I'm trying to think. I listened to like four podcasts. Listened to a great sermon by Tyler Staton on the John Mark Comer preaching podcast. Listened to a rewatchables apparently about a movie that really impacted my life, and it was really apparently shaped me in a heavy heavy way. So yeah. But
Happy
then
Gilmore?
I did finish up. Oh, I listened to them talk about Close Encounters of the Third Kind.
Never seen that.
Um, I haven't either. But they're doing this 70s month theme, and so they did Star Wars a couple weeks ago, and then they're doing this one, and they got one more. I did catch up on Reacher last night. I was a couple episodes behind, and so caught up on that, and I thought it was interesting. It was. We'll see. I mean, like I don't know. They can keep dragging it out
They're already
as long as
shooting
they
the
want
next
to.
season. They're shooting it right
Did
now. I saw that they were filming live at a Cubs game
Cubs
yesterday.
game. I saw that too, and so that's really funny that they were just at a Cubs game, couple of seats, hanging out, having conversations, people cheering, and and there they go. So
The star of that show, Alan
Richmond, something like that.
Richmond's, that
Yeah.
he's a pretty outspoken follower of Jesus. He's a
Yeah.
pretty bold Christian.
He's got some interesting theology, though. When you start to listen, anyway, he intrigues me. In that in that show, in this most recent season, Alan is 6'3", and he is a mammoth human. The guy that is kind of his nemesis, that you knew the fight was coming from episode one, um,
I looked
until
him
and
up
it's
because he was so huge. Yeah.
7'2".
Yeah.
And he is, I mean, like he makes Alan look small in moments and times. And so I just thought, man, that was because I was sitting there last night going, how big is this guy? What's the camera angle? And he is 7'2"
I
and
did the
just
same thing. Yeah.
ginormous human.
And I
So
went down a long rabbit trail reading about his life and his training regimen and how skinny he was, and decided he didn't want to be skinny anymore. So he started this massive training regimen and dieting program. And yeah, massive dude.
and then the book that I'm about to start is we have been talking with our boys for weeks and weeks and weeks around a podcast that's based on a book that Ben Stewart wrote called Single Dating Engaged Married. And so we're running through that with all of our boys and just kind of talking through those things. And so I just bought that book and I'm going to be working through that just kind of slowly and just developing some better conversations with my kids around dating and relationships and all this kind of stuff. And yeah. So what about you? Anything fun?
Well, I stayed up till 2 a.m. last night watching the Dodgers. We did watch a movie the other night, the kids and I. We watched Mufasa, the Lion King.
Oh, the live action.
Yeah, the new one. I'm not sure how new it is. It just released on Disney Plus, and so we had a movie night the other night, made some tacos, and sat and watched Mufasa, the Lion King. It wasn't the greatest movie in the world, but
I'm not loving these live action things.
it occupied 2 hours of an evening that probably could have been spent in a better way. But it was nice to curl up on the couch with the kids and watch a movie. Watching a show called Mr. Robot.
With
Stars Rami Malek. I'm not sure quite.
yeah,
how you pronounce his name.
he's great.
Yeah, really good. Haven't got too far into it, but it's also got Christian Slater in it, which is a good blast from the past. Haven't got too far into it, just a few episodes, but it's one of those shows where I'm like now itching to watch the next episode and find out what's going to happen, what's going to go on with that. So not too into that. I cannot stop listening to the Diary of a CEO podcast. I just finished listening to a 3-hour episode where he sat down with 4 leading experts on artificial intelligence and talked about where this is going, where it's at, and the terrifying outlook that is ahead of all of us because of artificial intelligence. I almost sent it to you and then thought, I'm not going to bombard you with a 3-hour podcast. But it was.
I didn't mind. I sent you a 4-hour one, so that's
you did send me a 4-hour one on Star Wars.
I did.
But yeah, that's pretty crazy. Some of the things they said there, we won't get into all of that. But if you're looking for an interesting way to spend 3 hours of your life and walk away from it feeling absolutely terrified, one of the latest episodes of Diaries of a CEO with Stephen Bartlett is Critical Conversations on AI, or Critical Debate, or something like that, on artificial intelligence. And it was very enlightening, very informing, and at the same time, completely terrifying. I'm just working through a book called How to Think Like Leonardo da Vinci, and unlocking your creative genius. And so not too far into that, but it's interesting. And that's about it for me. Yeah, that's about what I'm diving into right now. Starting a bunch of things is what I would say. And
The show dogs miss me, don't
they
they?
miss you. I was just about to say that they're missing you. They caught a glimpse of you on the computer screen
They're saying hello.
and decided to jump back into letting you know how much they loved you and miss you and wish that you were here.
I didn't get to chase my van up the hill.
Yeah. So, well, that's about it for Porch Picks, unless you've got anything else that you're
I
really
got
excited about.
no, I don't. I mean, my boys are excited, and I hope they don't do something crazy where we can't watch it. My boys are pretty excited about Happy Gilmore 2 this summer. We've got some conversations around the new Mission Impossible. There's a new Now You See Me coming out in like November, and so there's a few things coming up that we're kind of excited about. But we don't really do the theater just because it's so expensive. It's like $100 every time we go, and on a low end with five of us, and so yeah, I don't have anything else going on. I mean, we're watching a lot of sports right now. College World Series is going to be starting up soon. We watched Liberty beat Texas A&M in softball the other day, um, and so that was just some fun things there, but nothing crazy.
So, how do you stay grounded?
It was easier when I was in high school. I just say something smart mouth to my dad, and I could go sit in my room and, I just think about what I'd done. Um, I, I just need people so badly, and like I said earlier, like I don't. I've told Melissa for days. This has been my least favorite thing. Like it has messed with me for a week and a half that I've known that I was going to make this trip on my own, and um, and it's not the driving. I drive everywhere. If I'm in a car and all five of us are in the car, we were driving 30 hours. I would drive all 30 hours probably. I just drive. I enjoy that, um, and so it's not anything like that. And those things, I just don't like being. I just don't like being alone. And the thing that I'm learning about the being grounded side is, and Mel she didn't challenge me on this, but she mentioned something the other day of just the amount of noise that people have. And she's talking about that a younger generation is starting to turn off their phones a little bit. I actually heard a podcast the other day. It might have been this that JP becoming something. I think this was one of the questions they were answering was around technology, and he just said, I think that cell phones are eventually going to become one of those things that he said, if we can somehow get away from it, that he said, I think people are going to go, yeah, I used to have one of those. And he said they're just so consuming, and people are trying to figure out how to live life, and they can't do it with this device connected to them all the time. And so the grounded thing for me used to come through lots of conversation. Now I find myself really, really frustrated because I mean, people just don't want to listen to that much conversation typically. And so I'm having a hard time, but I'm having to learn how to kind of sit in silence and to rest in some spaces. And you and I talk about spiritual formation. I probably mention it on here as much as anything else I talk about. And I don't know. I'm trying to live in that space. I need community. I talked to you about that the other day. There's some community space gaps in my life, but like really what I need is more intentional quiet and more intentional moments. So, like today, I'm probably going to go find an outlet mall or something and just walk. I know people will be around. There'll be some noise, but it's rained all day. I don't really have shoes to go hiking,
I think that'll be a
and
good outlet for you.
yeah, thank you. Well played. And I just need to get out. I did that yesterday. I just got out and walked through some stores and Target and Ross and things like that. And just, I don't have AirPods in. I think we talked about one time, one of the struggles for me is, and somebody mentioned this, is that one of the decline in humanity right now is that we no longer have random conversation that enters into our life. And I wish I could remember all the verbiage. I need to look it up, but this person was just saying that we used to just have floating conversation that we would become a part of. But now, because, and I've got them in right now for the show, but now because of the AirPods and the things that are always in our ears and we're always got things on, um, I literally walked to Target yesterday and a lady's coming through with big headphones that look like what you have on her head. She's made it very clear, no one should speak to me. I don't want to hear anything you have to say.
Mm.
I don't want to hear the random noise. I don't want to hear any of the things. And I just kind of go, man, I need to. I need to be aware of what's around, but I need to be quiet. So anyway, that's for me. I don't. What's in your life? What's the things that's grounding you, and how do you stay grounded?
The thing that I keep coming back to is that I'm not called to be impressive. I'm called to be faithful. And you and I are having a lot of conversations about how do we grow this show? How do we have more of a reach and an influence with the Pulpit and Porch? And we have some goals that we would like. We've been spending a lot of time talking through those, game planning those, working through all of that stuff. And so I'm spending a lot of time researching what other successful shows, what other successful people are doing within the space that we want to be in. And the thing that I just keep coming back to is because I find myself admiring what other people are doing and admiring what other people are accomplishing, what they're able to do and how they're able to do that. And I want to glean from that. And I keep seeing that these people, and you've named even a couple of them here on the show today, that they're a brand, and I just keep coming back to that. God didn't call me to be a brand. He called me to be a disciple. And faithfulness beats fame every single time. And so I keep having to ground myself in that I'm not called to be impressive. I'm called to be faithful. And that's hard for me because I want to win the race, going back to what we were talking about before. But I'm not called to be a brand. I'm called to be a disciple.
Yeah, I think that's an interesting thought. I think you would agree. Not every person who has a platform is doing it wrong. Um,
Oh,
I
absolutely
think
not.
it's
Absolutely not. But I
um,
don't want to play the comparison game. That's not healthy for me.
yeah, no, I'm in the same boat, and
I do
and
want to
so,
play the comparison game. Let me rephrase that. I do play the comparison game. It's not healthy for me to do that. And so that's what I keep. You said, how do I keep myself grounded? That's what I keep having to do, is say I'm not called to be a brand. I'm called to be a disciple. I'm not called to be impressive. I'm called to be faithful. And whatever that looks like, it might not. Just keep coming back to the same things that we've been saying. I can't compare my growth. I can't compare our growth to someone else's growth. That my timing may not be God's timing. That what He's trying to do in me and through me might be a slower process than what I would like, and I need to be okay with that and just remain or abide in Him as He completes that work in me.
so let me ask you this, like with that thought, because I don't think that's an easy thing to wrestle with at times. I think it's an important thing to wrestle with, but I don't think it's an easy thing. Like, what's a rhythm or a spiritual practice, part of your spiritual formation that you're working through that's helping you navigate and move through that internal mental dialogue that you're going through?
Yeah, I think that for me, it's been lately just trying to incorporate silence. And so it's something that I don't do well with. I don't do well with just sitting in silence. We've talked about that before, that I walk into the room and I turn on the TV
Mm.
because I don't like the quiet. And so sitting, it comes back to when I found myself at 35 years old as a single dad, and my kids were at their mom's house, and I would come home from a long day of work at the church where I'm surrounded by people and have people, around all the time and constant noise. And then I'd walk into my house and it'd be just quiet. And I didn't like that. I got to the place where I had to fall asleep with a baseball game on the TV because I couldn't slow my mind down. I didn't like the feeling of being alone and being quiet. And so I don't like that silence. And I've grown accustomed to there's always noise around me. And so I've tried to incorporate several times a day of just silence. talked several times, I try to get up at 6 a.m. every morning to get into the gym. And instead of immediately going in and putting in the AirPods, immediately turning on TV or music, taking some time just to sit in silence and not talk. My big thing is I tend to want to talk to God and tell him all the things that I need out of the day, and instead just sit and try to listen to what the Spirit has to say to me. I've tried to start doing that in my car as well when I'm driving, which is really difficult. Instead of having sports radio on or a podcast on, to just turn the radio off and use that time as a time to just stop and be and just, well, not stop because then traffic would back up behind me, but to just slow the noise, to quiet the noise around me, and just be, not produce, don't plan, just be with God. Because I've found for me, a lot of times silence is where God speaks to me the loudest. Yeah, that's kind of where I'm at. How about you?
Yeah, I mean, I guess I think that I probably got a little ahead. It's in that same space. When you look at what has traditionally been called the disciplines by guys like Foster and Willard and guys like that, and are now be kind of spiritual formation for the benefit of others is the way that you're hearing those things worded now. When so disciplines formation, however that stuff gets worded, it's super easy for me to do the community, the teaching, the Bible reading. Prayer can be a mixed bag sometimes. Like I feel like that I can pray really, really well, and then there's moments where I feel like that, words fall short. I mean, I'm just repeating things that I don't know, and so I think that the Sabbath, the fasting, and the solitude, silence, um, are more the ones where I'm seeing the gap in my spiritual development. And so prayer would be very, very close to those as well. Just, learning to pray better. And I hate to say better, but this like, learning what it means to really communicate. And like, I think you said it well, just what it means to listen to the Father and not just constantly be trying to go, oh, hey, I love you. You're great. You're awesome. You're great. You're awesome. And then get to the point where I've said, okay, I've said that enough that I can go, okay, no reason I'm really here is there's this need and there's this thing. And so, yeah, I'm in that space
Do you
as
think
well.
that? Do you think that sometimes I'm a talker, right? I've built my whole life. My mouth has gotten me into trouble and out of trouble my entire life.
I always say I get paid to talk. I mean, I
Yeah,
really do.
that's the reality, is that in so many different areas, I get paid to talk on this podcast, in churches, in storytelling events, that I am a talker. It's what I do. And yet I think sometimes the most spiritual thing that I can do is stop talking,
Yeah.
which is what we're doing right
I,
now.
I was gonna say, I don't know if I'm supposed to, was there a question in there for me?
No, there wasn't. I was just sitting in it.
So
Yeah,
here's
I
the
was
thing.
just sitting in it.
How, which I don't think was bad. How has all of this changed how you define success
Hmm.
in this season?
How has it defined success for me, or how am I living it?
How's
Because
it changed? How's it maybe changed your definition of success in as you do this?
I think that success for me used to be a platform. How big can my church be? How big can the audience be? How big can the bank account be? That it used to be a platform, that I need a bigger platform to be more successful, to reach the level of success. And I want to say, so the definition, I think, has changed. The reality of, am I living in that, probably is still, well, not probably, it definitely is still a process, because I still want the bigger platform. And I think going back to, I want to touch on this really quick before I finish answering that question, is that for some of our listeners, they could hear the last 15, 20 minutes of our conversation talking about how silence is important, slowing down is important, not rushing is important, and not comparing, and seeing all these things. And me talking about how we're working at growing the show, and that I've been convicted that don't try to be like other people, and maybe God's timing is different. I think that what we can tend to do sometimes is stop and wait on God. That we hear this and we say, okay, so it's not my timing, it's God's timing. So I'm just going to stop and wait on God. There's this amazing passage. I love this passage, and it gets glossed over, skipped over so many times when we're reading and studying and teaching the life of Jesus, where he sends out the disciples in pairs. Right, he sends them out. They're just getting started in their ministry, in their discipleship, and they're very disciple challenged right now in this phase. And he says, "All right, you guys are going to go out." He pairs them up and says, "Now go." He only gives them a walking stick and sandals on their feet, and he says, "Go." So he only gives them things that are necessary for their walk. And some of them go and they don't know what to do. But yet they come back later, and we don't know certainly how much time it has been. Has it been days? Has it been weeks? Has it been months that they've been gone? But they come back and they've got all these stories of the things that God has done in them and the things that God has done through them, because they moved. So many times when we're there, we sit and we wait and we pray. Okay, God, I need you to bring the person to me. I need you to put someone in my life that I'm going to be able to work with. I need you to bring this opportunity to me. I need you to bring, and I think all he's saying is, if you would just move your feet and go, that the opportunities, you're going to come to them. You're going to come across them. And so I think that movement is key. Movement is critical. And so often we say, hey, we need to slow down. God's timing is not my own timing. And I don't want any of our listeners to think that we're saying, okay, so you and I, we're going to stop working aggressively to try to grow this show and do something more with this show. We're just going to wait on God's timing to do that. No, we have to be diligent and responsible in going out and doing the things that need to be done. But the end result, the focus doesn't need to be the platform. The focus needs to be, am I present with God? Am I present with the people that he's put in my life? And am I present with myself? Am I about the relationship? The relationships that are growing, the relationships that are forming, the relationships that are taking place. Success isn't found in the platform. Success isn't found in the spotlight. That it's found in the obedience to continuing in the journey, if that makes any sense.
Yeah, no, I heard somebody say the other day that obedience is what is produced out of a faithful life. And I don't know. I mean, I just think that's such a big thing, is that, like you said, it's not a step back, of just going, well, I'm going to sit here, and I think that's probably one of the tensions in so many. I think there's two extremes. And there's people who are just so driven, and it's like, I'm going to do this and it doesn't matter, and I'm going to burn everything to the ground, and I'm not going to pay any attention. And then there's people who are going, I don't want the platform, just when God's timing. And there's really this, you show me someone who, faith with works, I'll show you someone, works by, it's Paul's thing. And it's like, look, it's a connectedness here of being faithful where you can be, or where you should be, and that obedience is what drives, what I think would be true success.
I heard someone say one time, and I don't remember who it was, but it stuck with me, that, Matthew 16:26, you gain the whole world but forfeit your soul. I might have just completely got that verse wrong. I think that's right. Matthew 16:26. That I heard someone say, if you gain the whole world but lose your soul, that's not success. That's failure in disguise.
Mm.
And, if I gain followers but lose my soul, that's not success. That's failure in disguise.
Yeah.
If I gain subscribers, but lose my soul, that's not success. That's failure in disguise. If I gain a platform, but lose my soul, that's not success. That's failure in disguise. And I think that if our goal is on the numbers of people in our congregation, if our goal is the number of people that are listening to our show, if our goal is the number of people that like us on Instagram, that's not success. Success isn't found in the spotlight. It's found, I mean, back to what we said before, it's found in the stillness. It's found in the quiet. Success is found in the spaces where there's no one clapping for you.
Yeah, I agree 100%. And I just, it's a fine line when we live in a world where everybody, I don't love a lot of the things that churches have to do these days and things like that, because I feel like it's just a complicated thing, but the vast majority of churches when I was growing up, I mean, there was maybe 5 or 10 that had a video ministry that they literally recorded a VHS tape and took it to the local TV station, and maybe 5 or 10 churches, and you had hundreds of churches that the vast majority of them, they got up and their responsibility every week was just to love people well, and to be a disciple that made disciples. And I'm not saying everybody handled that perfectly, but there was no opportunity. Like, if you wanted to become something that would be considered successful in the eyes of this world, you had to leave. You had to start at a small church and then go to a bigger church and then go to a bigger church and then go to a bigger church, and so I just think that that it's a different space. And there's some things there that I think that you and I are both just kind of talking through, that so for me, I mean, this whole step is how do I get to a space where things are more quiet but yet be faithful in the things I know I need to do, and not just go, well, I'm being quiet, and so it'll either work out or it doesn't.
Yeah, and everything that we've just said preaches really well. Sounds really good. It's really hard to live. And I am in no way mastered that at all. When we get off of here later today, I'm probably going to check our stats and see how many people have listened to our episode that dropped yesterday. I'm probably going to go and check and see, what our statistics are looking like over the last month, how they're projecting going forward. There's a good chance that you're probably going to go into a staff meeting, and attendance numbers and giving numbers are going to be discussed maybe at the top of the agenda. And not saying that that's something that we shouldn't look at. We should be looking and seeing that we're growing. We should be looking and seeing that we're meeting budget. We should be checking and seeing that we're reaching new people with our show, but that shouldn't be our definition of success. You asked, how has your definition of success changed? And I'm trying to change it from it being a platform to just being present. And I'm not doing well at that right now, but it's a growth process that trying to.
Yeah, I think, it's an interesting thing you're saying there. I think for me, kind of that conversation moves around. Nobody should be waking up today going, well, I don't want to. I'm all about not being famous or something, so I'm not going to worry about my sermon. Everybody should be going, I want to improve. I mean, I think that's a biblical thing. Do everything is unto the Lord. And as broken, flawed people, we should daily be looking to improve in our life. We should be wiser. We should want to be a better communicator. We should want to love our families, lead our kids, care for our spouse. Like, we should want to do those things better. And we should want to grow in those areas. And so for me, I think the shift has been more of a like, it matters little, Paul says. So it matters a little bit what people think, but really it only matters what God thinks. And so the question for me is, Because if I'm just trying to go, man, somebody didn't like my sermon this week. Well, did they not like it because it was bad? Did they not like it because it hit too close to home? Did they not like it because they felt like I've preached the same thing for 6 months? I mean, why? I mean, why did they not like it? And I think that's the hard part of this whole deal is like, for me, I've got to step in and go, okay, here's the space where I'm at. And I've got to be faithful today. And a lot of my time today when I'm just sitting in a hotel room is going to be working through, just kind of the final thoughts of Sunday. And as I kind of step into that and kind of drive some next steps and do some things, I mean, there's going to be questions around, God, how do I be faithful to you and not be mean to other people? Because I don't care to be mean to myself, but like you can't just bring people along by bullying them. You got to speak truth in love. Always be prepared to give an answer, but do so with gentleness and respect. How do I do that gently and respectfully? And how do I share the truth in love? And I don't always do a great job because one-liners are awesome. Zingers are great. And so, I mean, just for me, I think that's one area just in preaching is like I've kind of started to go, okay, how do I say those things and not try to be people going, wow, he really stepped on our toes today? Because I don't think it's my job to step on people's toes. I think that's the work of the Holy Spirit. And my world is to um be faithful and obedient and take those steps in my own life. So
Good stuff today. Hey, this wasn't a 4-hour podcast episode. This
it
wasn't
was
even a
not.
3-hour podcast episode. In fact, we
No.
came in less than half of a 3-hour podcast episode, but that is all the time that we do have for this edition of the Pulpit and Porch podcast. We want to thank Robert for joining us live via internet from Murfreesboro, Tennessee. We wish him the best of luck in his baseball endeavors this week. And we do want to thank you for joining us for the last hour and 20 minutes here on the Pulpit and Porch. We hope that you've enjoyed your time and enjoyed this discussion as we've continued on our discussion of where we're at, where we're going, what we've learned, and how we're growing. So if we would love to hear your ideas, your thoughts on this conversation. What are you doing? How has your definition of success changed recently? And what is your definition of success now? You can join that conversation by finding us on Facebook, Instagram, look for the Pulpit and Porch. Like our page, subscribe our page, and while you're at it, jump on over to Spotify, Apple Music, iTunes, wherever you listen to your favorite podcasts, and subscribe there. Your subscribing to our podcast really helps us out a lot. It helps other people to find our show and to increase not our platform, but our influence and opportunity for someone that may need to hear the things that we're talking about. Have a great rest of your week. We'll see you next week on the Pulpit and Porch.